News. The headline for the paper: Trump faces a backlash from business as trade war sounds an inflationary alarm. That and plenty more when we come back.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explore defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force. This is routine training for NATO. But should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Sky News, the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour, then we'll see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and author Natasha Devon and the economics editor of The Spectator, Kate Andrews. Lovely to see both of you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So as ever, let's check out the front pages. Let's start with the Financial Times and the looming threat of a trade war sparked by Donald Trump's foreign imports tariffs, leading the Financial Times, which says the likely effect on consumer prices could lead to a backlash from US business and his own party. The Guardian says the new tariffs have sparked fears of a global trade war. The Telegraph says the European Union has told Donald Trump it won't be bullied over trade despite the threat of tariffs. But as Keir Starmer tries to rebuild our relationship with the EU, the Mail says experts fear UK businesses will also pay a high price. On those Starmer efforts, The Times says France's President Macron will tell the PM tomorrow that Brexit has clearly failed. The Eye says a major government defence review is to warn that the UK needs to develop its own Iron Dome missile defence shield to protect from possible attack by Russia. The Sun, meanwhile, pictures a young British man killed in Ukraine, apparently in a Russian drone strike. The sister of Ruth Perry, the head teacher who took her own life after her school was downgraded by Ofsted, warns in the Metro that a new traffic light style system to replace single-word ratings is just a dangerous rehash. The Express speaks to actress and care campaigner Ruthie Henschel about her elderly mother's care home, and she tells the paper that she'd rather be dead than ever be put into a home. And finally, the Daily Star says our cities are being invaded by gangs of rats, thanks to the effects of global warming. The headline, Squeaky Blinders. Boom, boom. Joined, as you can see, by Natasha and Kate. Very interesting set of headlines, to be fair. Much of it looking ahead. But let us take a look, first of all, at what has happened already, which is Donald Trump has put corking tariffs on its nearest neighbours and a bit extra on China. Kate, how seismic do you think this is as we look towards retaliation? Mexico coming tomorrow, already heard something from Canada.
It's absolutely massive. North America is now engaged in a full-blown trade war. Donald Trump decided to go ahead with those 25% import tariffs on both Canada and Mexico. He has made some exceptions for Canadian energy resources. That's going to have a tariff of 10%. And he's also slapped a 10% tariff on China. Understandably, and as expected, Canada and Mexico are talking about retaliation, as is China, although we don't have the full details yet. This is a full-blown trade war in the making. Reasons to be optimistic that potentially there could still be a climb down. A lot of the tariffs from Canada's side don't come into effect for 3 weeks, which seems like quite a natural negotiation period.
Tuesday's the day for a lot of this, though, isn't it? But do continue.
For America, yes.
Yeah.
But Canada is saying we are retaliating in a couple of weeks for the most part. That could be a natural area to negotiate. When this happened back in 2017, when Donald Trump first came into office, he slapped tariffs on Canada and vice versa, and they quietly went away on both sides within a year. But this is a different level. We are talking substantial taxes on American business and now on Canadian and Mexican business as well, if they do decide to retaliate. And markets are very nervous. We should expect to see some major moves tomorrow. There's already warning that the stock market is going to take its toll. There's warnings about inflation because these are taxes. These are taxes that are going to see the prices of goods and of food and of necessities go up for consumers. I think it's something like 2/3 of vegetables that are bought in the United States come from Mexico. So Donald Trump on the campaign trail promised to bring down costs, a big promise, not something that's always in a politician's control. He also promised tariffs. These things really do not gel well. He's opted for tariffs, and he himself has now said there's going to be pain attached to this.
And as you said, a large part of his election campaign was criticising Joe Biden for sitting on big inflation and introducing inflationary measures. The measures are on things like food, from meat to orange juice. You mentioned some of the veg, appliances, rubber tyres, lumber, paper products, clothing. Small amount on energy. Obviously, Canada is a very big energy exporter. We're used to, says the one organisation, we're used to having frictionless trade in North America. That's been going on for some people for their whole lifetime. So going from free trade to 25% is really pretty dramatic, and I think it's going to lead to a huge shock for the US economy. We're just coming out of a series of shocks, be it COVID, be it energy inflation. You know, to introduce another one almost self-imposed on you as Europe and indeed the UK sits to wait to see what tariffs are coming our way.
It's been described as using a sledgehammer when a scalpel was required. And I also don't see how it's going to achieve Trump's stated aims of stemming the flow of both migrants and fentanyl across the borders, unless he's planning to inflict so much pain on neighbouring countries that they make greater efforts in those regards. But how quickly can that happen, and how much will the American, Canadian and Mexican public have to suffer in the meantime?
Absolutely, and changing the rate at which charging comes in as well, $800 and under, you know, don't worry about that. But that's gone now, hasn't it? Which means that First of all, they think small chemical stuff coming in, the fentanyl you talked about, but also some of the big Chinese companies like Shein, Temu, the big, the importers who have low-value items. All the packages are going to be open now to be examined to face tariffs on it.
This is a crackdown on cheap products. And from a philosophical perspective, if we look at somebody like the Vice President, J.D. Vance, he thinks that there's a strong moral case to do this. He believes in protecting American industry. He believes in this kind of tax. He thinks taxes should go up to protect American business. But Donald Trump has always been a lot less clear on this. He tends to use tariffs, as you say, a negotiating tactic to get all different kinds of things, from immigration agreements to crackdowns on drug gangs. What Donald Trump really doesn't like is when the economy suffers. He likes to be able to say, I am the guy under which the economy thrives for American citizens. And again, tariffs are going to make that a lot more difficult. I think if you're Canadian, you're truly baffled, because we know about...
Well, you're already protesting at the US anthem at sports stadiums, aren't you? There we are, yeah.
Well,
We've done a lot of booing.
It's a very interesting decision Trump has made to lump Canada in with Mexico and China. When it comes to China, it's a whole raft of things that the president takes issue with. It's not just about the cheap goods coming in, it's about defense, it's about trust, it's about IP. When it comes to Mexico, we know it's about the illegal immigration there and the drugs that are coming over the border. Illegal immigration has been increasing from Canada, but we are not talking nearly the same levels. And drugs as well. I mean, this is minuscule compared to what comes from other countries. I think if you're Canadian, you are particularly shocked going into this week.
Yeah. OK, well, there's the headline in the FT. Trump faces backlash from business as trade war sounds inflation alarm. It's from business in the US, remember, that's starting to complain. We'll come back to Sir Keir Starmer and his meetings in Europe in a moment. First of all, though, Natasha, Ofsted, the idea that it's changing after complaints about the one-word assessment, that people were very critical of, and still some concern about the new system. So what is the new system looking like?
The new system is going to be assessing schools over 8 different criteria, which include, as well as academic attainment, things like well-being and attendance and leadership. And as somebody who has worked in education now for a decade and a half and has visited hundreds of schools, I'm tentatively positive about this, because with the old system where you were just given one word, a word like outstanding or inadequate, some schools are outstanding in some ways and inadequate in others. And of course, all children are different and have different needs from their schools. So I didn't think that it gave parents that definitive idea of what the school would be like, as has been claimed in some quarters. There are some concerns, though, that this really isn't changing that much. And of course, with the tragic case of Ruth Perry, it wasn't just about the ruling from Ofsted. It was about the entire inspection and the way that inspections are conducted, being unnecessarily pressured on school staff and almost going in with an attitude of we're looking for problems rather than trying to see what it is that you're doing as a school on your best day, and allowing teachers to show what they do in a natural environment. So I wonder whether the mental health training that's been given to Ofsted inspectors was quite minimal, and whether the criticisms are about whether or not these overhauls go far enough.
But the one word that everyone talks about, was just one part of a very big report that parents could then read. So you don't want to get rid of all of that assessment, because parents do find it extremely useful, don't they, when they're assessing, where to go to school, but also where to live.
That is true. However, like I say, any parent will tell you that there could be an outstanding school around the corner, according to a one-word Ofsted grade, that would be catastrophic for their child because of the way that it operates. All pupils have different needs. And if I was a parent, and for example, I would be very interested in things like behaviour and inclusion, which are some of the categories that are now going to be assessed.
Interesting. OK, we'll look out for more on that. In the meantime, back to Sir Keir Starmer, his meeting in Brussels. It's about defence. If we look also at the time, so there's the defence line. UK Iron Dome needed to guard against Russian attack. This is the defence review. He's going to be talking about defence in Europe as well. But just on the European question, I'm going to knock onto the Times as well. French tell the UK to eat humble pie on Brexit. So the idea of getting close via something like defence is how it's shaping up for the PM tomorrow.
there's a lot going on in Brussels. There's discussions of Brexit. As you say, they're primarily there to talk about defence, but they're not going to be able to avoid the topic of tariffs either, now that Donald Trump has also suggested that he has his eyes set on Europe. This is an interesting decision on the part of President Macron to imply to Keir Starmer that Brexit has failed and, that there should be some element of humble pie here as he arrives. First of all, the idea of Brexit does not mean that you turn your back on your most important allies when it comes to defence. The idea that the UK's Prime Minister would show up for a conversation like this, I think, is almost besides the point of Brexit. But the issue for all of them, whether you're in or outside of the European Union, is that Donald Trump is now demanding that you spend 5% of your GDP on defence, something America does not even do. Realistically speaking, a lot of people think that means that he wants them to strive for 2.5%, but we're talking about finding billions and billions of pounds on top of what's already being spent at a time where you just have stagnant growth in the UK and across Europe. They have far bigger problems on their hands with North America's trade war, and certainly threats coming from countries like Russia and China, than they do to still be fighting over something that happened years ago now, especially when this is supposed to be an attempt at a reset. It's supposed to be an attempt to talk about these bigger issues that all of them have to face. Surely that's got to be the priority as Starmer goes to Brussels this week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those discussions shape up. As you said, lots going on there. Anyway, stay with us if you don't mind, Natasha, Kate. Lots more still to come in our programme, including I'd Rather Be Dead Than in a Home. This is the actress Ruthie Henschel. So we'll have more on the state of our social care system next.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
They were prepared for protest, but not on this scale.
How difficult is this to police tonight?
Off the scale. I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
The last smoke and steam rises into the sky above Blast Furnace 4.
Today is a day in history.
Sky News, get the full story first, free, wherever you get your news.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
Free, wherever you get your news. The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks. I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, the broadcaster and author Natasha Devon, and the economics editor of the Spectator, Kate Andrews. Welcome back to both of you. Natasha, let's look at the Daily Express. We know that social care has been kicked into the long grass once again, but this is somebody speaking from the heart about possible changes that need to be seen and what's happening in care homes now.
Yes, it's the actress Ruthie Henshall who was reflecting on the last year of her mother's life, her mother Gloria, who had dementia. And it's her view that the people who were managing the care home where her mother was were turning her away when she wanted to visit her more frequently, to use powers that were given to them during COVID to stop the spread of potentially fatal diseases, but are no longer strictly necessary and also can be particularly damaging in the case of people who have dementia, who require an advocate to ensure that they are being cared for in the right way. So she is lobbying to bring in something called Gloria's Law, which is where if you are in a care home, you are allowed a designated person. It can be a family member or it can be a close friend, but that is somebody who is able to access the care home at any time and without warning to make sure that you are being cared for adequately, but also, I suppose, to support the incredibly stretched care teams and to contribute to the caring themselves as well.
OK, that's very interesting, isn't it? And, you know, such a critical issue for so many people. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. This is Angela Rayner, her workers' rights crusade. They just say it's a rights crusade. I'm presuming it's about the rights that workers have, is going to seal the status for the UK as the work-from-home capital because of flexible working requirements. Is that right?
The Telegraph is reporting, and I think we're meant to assume this is part of the changes coming to employment law, that flexible working would be made the default for all workers. So that would be a right, an option for you, rather than something you had to negotiate with your company. It's an interesting choice from the government at a time where business is in a real drive to get people back to the office. That post-COVID, they have realized that often profitability and being able to collaborate and be more creative does require people in the same place. But the figures compiled by LinkedIn, which the Telegraph highlight here, showing that 40% of all jobs advertised in the UK in November were hybrid roles, suggests that this is perhaps something that doesn't need to be fixed by government. That actually, if you are looking for flexible working, you have a lot of options out there right now. That this maybe is something that is panning out correctly between workers and employees. The options are there. Why take that extra step and demand that all employers give flexibility as a default, when actually, if you as an employee want to take that up, it seems like there are a lot of options out there for you right now.
OK. Last story, I think, actually, which is front page of the Telegraph. Where is it? Oh, there we go. It's the SNP, they tell us, considering a ban on keeping cats as pets.
I mean, we can only assume
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
that this will be a ban on having a cat as a pet and allowing it outside, because this is about protecting birds and wildlife. If you have an indoor cat, they present no threat whatsoever.
Most people don't have indoor cats, do they?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in East Asia, they would think that it was very strange for you to allow your cat just to wander around the streets. It's a completely different culture there, where it was more normal to keep your cat indoors. And so I guess that would represent a change. But as a cat owner myself, I can't imagine just allowing my cat out. I have a house cat, and I find it bizarre.
So your cat never goes out?
No, because I find it bizarre to say, thing that I love, just go forth amongst the cars and potentially hazardous outdoor world. I wouldn't have an issue with this law, put it that way.
Really?
Wow. Well, it does say here that it could extend to stopping people from owning them altogether. I really can't think of a policy that would whip up more strong feelings, let's say.
There's stages before banning, isn't it? They're like, bells to warn the birds. Anyway, very interesting. Good choices. Natasha, Kate, thank you very much indeed. See you in a bit. Let's take a look now at the weather. Next few days will bring a northwest-southeast divide, if you can follow that, in our weather. Wet and windy conditions focused in the north and the west. Further south and east should stay largely dry, although thicker cloud drifting eastwards across England and Wales on Monday morning may bring some drizzle. Meanwhile, northwest Scotland and western fringes of Ireland will turn increasingly windy through the day as a band of rain spreads slowly southwards. The best of the sunshine will be across northern and western parts of England and much of Wales. Skies will brighten up later across East Anglia and the southeast as the cloudy skies clear eastwards. The rain, though, moving in the northwest will turn heavy at times, especially over the Scottish Highlands, along with a risk of gales. Rain will continue to push southwards on Tuesday, followed by colder air in the north. Well, coming up next on Sky News at 11, all the latest as Canada and Mexico plan retaliatory measures